How can you know if you're really customer-centric? It's a question I very often get. And there are multiple ways to address this. You can look to your customer satisfaction scores, you can look at your net promoter score, or you can ask yourself, is our rewarding system linked with our customer satisfaction? Those are all very valid points to look at. But what I like to do is I like to ask a company 3 questions to find out if they're really customer-centric. And that first question is, how do you react when you have an opposing interest with your client? Let me give you an example to make it clear. Imagine a bank. Imagine a client of a bank that has a sleeping bank account that they didn't use for the last 5 years. But every year they pay an annual fee for the support and maintenance of that sleeping bank account. Imagine that you have a large pool of those customers. How do you deal with that as a bank? Will you keep that as silent as possible to bring in the money without any effort? Or will you go to those clients and say, hey, you have a sleeping account, we need to talk about this, you need to shut it down because you're paying us and it's not bringing you any value? Or are you going back to the client and saying, hey, you've been paying us for the last 5 years, we didn't bring any value, we're going to pay you back for that. And you see how the level of customer centricity is building up. And that's a mindset that I think is crucial to understand how customer-centric you are. How do you deal with those opposing interests? That was question number 1. Question number 2, what's your mindset when a problem occurs, when something goes wrong in an interaction between you and your client? Do you have a let's fix it mindset, which means that you will fix the problem as soon as possible and that's your key priority at that moment? Or do you have a let's find out whose fault it is mindset? And the two define how customer-centric you are. The majority of the organizations will look for the person who made the mistake, if it's your fault as a customer or my fault, and then they will act. Whereas a customer, they just want to have a solution, and afterwards you can look how to improve the process or figure out what went wrong. Fix it attitude versus let's find out who did it attitude. That's question number 2. And question number 3 is this: how empowered are your employees to solve problems? We all know these organizations where you have a problem and you're talking with an employee, and at a certain moment they're like, let me ask my manager. That basically, as a customer, that's the sentence you don't want to hear. You don't want to talk to a manager, you just want the problem to be solved, and you want that person that is sitting in front of you to have the capacity and the empowerment to basically solve that problem. And in some organizations, people are not allowed to do anything. In other organizations, people are trained and facilitated to solve a problem, whatever it takes, because they know that is what the organization and the customer expects from them. 3 very simple questions, but believe me, if you check that upon yourself, you will have a much more clear view to find out how customer-centric you are. How do you deal with opposing interests? What's your mindset with mistakes? Fix it, find out who did it, and how empowered are your employees? That's how you can find out how customer-centric you are. How can we create a customer-centric culture? It's one of the crucial items. We all dream, every organization dreams about a company that is fully customer-centric and that everyone is part of that belief and everyone takes the right actions for that. Now, I've listed 5 criteria that can help you to create a culture that you want to have. The first one is, and that's where it all starts, you need to have a crystal clear vision. People in your organization need to know what you expect from them. They need to know that if you tell them to focus on a customer, that you're serious about it and that you mean it. And you have to bring that in an enthusiastic way and share all the stories you can find about how you can make customers happy. That's number 1. Number 2 is hire for diversity. This is something that is often overlooked, but most of the businesses that I know, they have a very diverse audience. We're working with people of color, we're working with male, with females, we're working with people of different religions. I mean, your audience, your customers, that's a diverse group. If you want to understand them, if you want to serve them in a proper way, you need to hire for diversity and make sure you have different points of view in your organization to boost the overall level of empathy. That's number 2. Number 3 is make sure you empower people. Don't micromanage every small mistake that happens and don't tell them what to do. Just give them a context and say, look, we want to help out people. We want to help out our customers, and you have the authority to make that call. I will be happy with you if you make our customers happy. And create a mindset where people fix the problem. If something goes wrong with a customer, it doesn't matter who made the mistake. Even if the customer made the mistake, it doesn't really matter. It's about understanding what that customer wants. And that customer wants to be helped. So even if the customer made a mistake, you invite your employees to help them out and you empower them to do so. That's number 3. Number 4 is create a safe environment. And a safe environment means that people will also believe you that they are empowered, which means that at a certain moment, if they're, for instance, overshooting, imagine something goes wrong and you told your teams to solve the problem for that customer and someone really overdid it. They went over the top to solve a problem and you think by yourself, whoa, if they're all going to start doing that, we're going to go out of business. That was too expensive, or it wasn't efficient, or it was just too much. Ask yourself what the impact will be if you tell an employee that feedback. Maybe that's a moment where you don't share that feedback, because at a certain moment they will not feel safe anymore. They will feel safe if they get supported. Your mission was, and your goal was to make sure that they help customers. We have to accept that they will not always do that in the exact same way that you would do that. But as long as that goal is achieved, that they help out a customer, let's be happy with that. And if you do that, and if you don't criticize and micromanage on the approach on how they do that, then you create a safe environment that people will actually believe you, and that's the point where they will change their behavior in favor of your customers. That's number 4. Number 5 is a crucial one. Don't fall in the KPI trap. Managers love KPIs. It's the first question people have when they have a new initiative. How shall we measure that? Which KPI are we going to use? And I'm a fan of measuring things, but I'm afraid of the KPI fall, which means that you're starting to take decisions to boost your scores on NPS or to boost your scores on customer satisfaction. And the question that you ask yourself is, how can we increase NPS? That's the wrong question. The question is, how can we serve our customers better? How can we create more value? At the end of the day, that's the goal, and the effect of that will be that your scores will go up. But if you manage the scores, you will take decisions that are not always in favor of the customer and are not always creating the value that the customer wants. And just in everything that you do, keeping your eye on that customer will eventually create that customer-centric culture. 5 ideas, 5 criteria that I've seen work in multiple industries, and I hope it brought some inspiration to all of you. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, like it, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you again in one of my next videos. Take care. How to empower your employees to become more customer-centric? It's a question that everyone is asking these days, and to answer it, I think the most crucial part is that you create a safe environment for your employees. The goal is that you want them to act in a customer-centric way, which means that you want them to solve problems, that they have to advise things to customers. That's the goal. To succeed in that, you have to accept the fact that they will do that in their own way, that they will behave different than how you maybe would solve it, and that is perfectly fine as long as they achieve the goal of helping customers. Now, to make sure that that safe environment becomes more concrete, it's important that you define some sort of a playing field, some boundaries, because if you just say, oh, dear employee, you can do whatever you want as long as you help the client, they will feel uncertain. So you need to have boundaries. For instance, you could say, hey, the limit in budget that you have to help people is 500 euros, $500 US. I heard a great example of my good friend Shep Hyken. He talked about how people in the Ritz-Carlton, how employees in the Ritz-Carlton are allowed to deal with this. At the Ritz-Carlton, employees have a budget of $2,000 US to solve problems. That's pretty big. That means that if you go to your room and they didn't clean it in a proper way, or you find some dirty towels on the floor and you tell that to one of the employees, they will fix that, of course. But there's a big chance that you will find some chocolates in your room with a handwritten card or a bottle of champagne. They will not give you $2,000 for that, but they know that that's the limit. And the fact that there's a boundary, the fact that there's a playing field, gives them a very comfortable feeling. They know that they can do whatever they want within that limit to help customers. And then, of course, you have to trust them that they have their own capabilities to make the right choice and to figure out, if the mistake and the solution are balanced out. But the fact that there's a playing field gives them a more secure feeling. So I think that's something that you need to have to create that safe environment. And the last thing that I would recommend is do whatever you can to share as many positive stories as possible. Cultivate it. I mean, every time that one of your employees is doing something to help out customers, make sure that you recorded it, or that you have a quote from that customer, or that you have a picture or a video or just an anecdote that that employee is sharing. But make sure that you have that and that you can share it with others so that they see, oh, my colleague just did that. That's a great idea. I'm going to use that as well, and that they inspire each other. And creating that safe environment, creating those boundaries, and sharing positive stories will be a big facilitator to make sure that your employees actually behave in a more customer-centric way. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like it, share it with your friends, subscribe to my channel, and thank you very much for watching. See you again soon. How can you use your Net Promoter Score, your NPS score, to actually have an impact on your customer experience and your customer centricity? First of all, many people ask me, what's the best metric to use to measure your customer centricity? In my opinion, it doesn't really matter. There are people who are preaching for NPS against, others prefer customer satisfaction. In my opinion, that's not what it's really about. If you want to have an impact with your NPS score or customer satisfaction score, what really matters is how you use it. And the companies that succeed in translating the results of the Net Promoter Score into the impact for every individual employee are the ones that make a difference. I've seen too many presentations where a senior leadership team is presenting the NPS scores, and they're like, we have an NPS score of 10 this year, guys, and that's good, but next year we want to go for 70. And the senior leadership gets really excited because they're really into it. But then I look into a room and I see like 75% of the employees are thinking, sure, whatever, have fun with your NPS score. So there's a disconnect often with how management looks at it and how everyone on the floor is looking at it. So if you want to, break down that disconnect and make sure that there's a connect, you need to know for every individual employee how they can contribute to a higher Net Promoter Score. And this takes one-on-one conversations. That means that you go to someone in the warehouse, you sit down with that person and you're like, okay, you just heard that we want to increase our NPS score. This is how you specifically can contribute. You go to the finance people, you go to the HR people, you go to everyone in the organization. You have a one-on-one and you tell them how they can contribute to a higher NPS score. If you succeed in doing that, that will be the moment that you will have a higher impact with your NPS, and it will result in higher scores, and eventually you will become more customer-centric because of that. That's for me the crucial question. How does everyone contribute to the success, rather than asking what kind of metric do we need to use? Just my 5 cents on NPS, guys. I hope it helps. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it, and I hope to see you again soon in one of my next videos. Take care. How can you convince your senior leadership to invest more in customer experience? This is a question so many people have. And there are 2 ways to approach this. You can do it in a rational way, which means that you make this huge Excel sheet and you tell them, if you invest in X and Y, the churn rate will decrease. That's an approach that you can do. I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm a bigger fan of the more emotional way. And my recommendation would be, take your senior leadership on a safari. Don't take them to the zoo. Take them on a safari. And this is what I mean with that. Very often, senior leaders are exposed to customers by the means of PowerPoint presentations with statistical data, which means that you will say, for instance, look, dear CEO, COO, 75% of our customers are happy. And what you're actually doing is you're dehumanizing the customer. And it's a very abstract kind of way. It's not a human, it's a statistic. That's going to the zoo. What I would recommend is take them on a safari, which means that you actually bring your senior leadership closer to the end customer. And there are different ways to do that. You can have breakfast seminars where top leaders sit together with real customers. You can take them on events. They can sit down in customer service and listen in to phone calls. You can have events where they sit together. I mean, there's so many ways to do it, but it's crucial to have that direct feedback. It's the N is one effect, is what I call it. I'm sure many of you had this, that you talked to your CEO and you said, hey, I have this great idea, I want to do this and that because we're not really performing in the way that we should on this dimension of our company, and you're really excited about it, and then the CEO is like, yeah, but that's not so important. And then like 2 months later, your CEO has this neighborhood barbecue, and a neighbor comes in and is like, hey, Mr. CEO, Mrs. CEO, I work with your company and this isn't great, I don't like this. And then they show their phone and say, look, this is what I got. And then the CEO is like, oh my God, this is terrible. They come back to the office and they tell you, what was your idea again that you had 2 months ago? And suddenly it becomes a priority because a neighbor actually talked about it. That's the N is one effect. That's going on a safari. If you want to make sure that your senior leadership is more into customers, take them on a safari, bring them directly to the customer so that they can hear the oohs and the ahs directly from the mouth of the customer, and you will see that their commitment towards customer centricity will increase rapidly. Go on a safari. And if you enjoyed the video, please like it, share the video with your network, subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you again soon in one of my next videos. Thanks for watching. How can you be more customer-centric on social media? And to answer this question, I actually want to go back to the year 2010. That's a while ago, but that's the year that my first book came out, The Conversation Manager, that actually talked about how to use social media to become more customer-centric. And there's a model in that book that I still think works today to become more customer-centric on social media. Step one is listen. You don't always have to say something. When you listen to what people say, it can basically give you answers to questions you don't have. Just tap into their conversations. There are many tools out there to do so, and try to look for answers on questions that you don't have. It will learn you a lot. That's number one. Number two is facilitate the conversation. You don't always have to lead the conversation. You can also facilitate it, which means that you can put content out there, which means that you can ask questions, which means that you can bring a community of people together and you facilitate them to talk about a topic, and you're just sitting in or you're just adding a comment now and then, but it's basically being the facilitator of the conversation. That's a second approach that you can use. And the third one is join the conversation. It's very simple, this one, but if people ask you a question, it's very polite to answer that question. And it takes some time, but by doing so and by answering questions and by reacting to comments on YouTube, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, by replying to comments, you're showing people that you really care. I've seen many brands that share a lot of content out there. And one of their KPIs to measure success is the level of engagement. So they want people to like, they want people to comment, but they don't react back. I mean, that's like when you're crossing the street, when you're trying to cross the street and a car stops. I mean, if you don't wave to that car, that driver hates you, right? If you're the driver and you stop and a pedestrian just walks over and they don't wave at you, you don't like that. You're like, I shouldn't have stopped. But it's the same thing with online. If people give a comment on something that you do, just reply. It's a polite thing to do. It's like waving to the car that stopped for you. Three approaches to be more customer-centric on social media. Listen, facilitate, join. 3 steps. Try them out and you will see that it works fine. Hope this helps. If you enjoyed the video, as always, please like it, share it, subscribe to my channel, and stay with me for new videos that will come soon. Thanks for watching. How can we make our customer relation more emotional? It's a crucial question, and I think in the world of CX, the world of customer experience, too many of us are just focusing on the process. And we feel that having a great customer experience means that you have detailed out every aspect of that customer journey. And of course that's crucial. The process is the foundation, but it's not the differentiator, and it certainly doesn't bring in the emotion. Let's take a very simple example. Let's take a restaurant. When you go to a restaurant, in every restaurant the process is the same. You order your food, the chef makes it, then the waiter picks it up in the kitchen and brings it to your table. It's the exact same process over and over again. But still, in some restaurants, you're having a better time than in others. And the difference is not made with the process, the difference is made with the kind of energy, the intention that the waiter and the staff has at that moment. So if you want to bring emotion in your customer relation, it's about figuring out how you can make every transaction more unique and more human. I think that we probably need more creative people in every touch point. Like you know that I'm a huge fan of Disney, right? And at Disney they have an Imagineering team. It must be wonderful to work there. And the Disney Imagineering team, their goal is that every time that me as a customer touches upon something of Disney, it is within the emotion of Disney. And it's every small detail. In traditional organizations, it often works differently. You have your brand team that is so much focused on logos and marketing communication and are not involved in all the other processes. Take if you call to a contact center, you're basically calling with a human, so you would expect an emotional relation, but very often it's very transactionally scripted. It's very functional. It's made to be efficient. What if you add some Imagineering power to that and you make that script more in line with who you want to be and you make it more human? That's when you add emotion to the process. So basically you need two things on top of that process. You need your creativity, like the Imagineering group of Disney. You need creativity everywhere you touch the market. And on top of that, you need the human skill, because humans make it unique. Every human has their own personality, and that personality is an identification of the brand, basically. So if you invest in your humans and you make sure that humans understand that they will bring emotion to the relationship, and let's be honest, positive or negative, that can make a difference. So very simply put, your process is the foundation. You add creativity, you add the human touch, and that's when you will create emotion in the customer relation. Hope this was a good piece of inspiration for all of you. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like it, share it, subscribe to my channel, and thank you very much for watching this video. Take care. How can AI change customer experience? There are two sides of the story. First of all, it's behind the scenes. AI will help us to become more productive and to increase the experience for customers in a more invisible way. And on the other hand, it will be in front of the scenes where the way that we buy and the way that we interact with brands will change fundamentally. But let's start behind the scenes. I like to play with these letters, AI to IA, artificial intelligence to intelligence augmented. Behind the scenes, we will find intelligence augmented, which means that the technology will support the humans to do a better job. And the first place where we're going to see this is the world of contact centers and customer service. There you already have software that dives into the data of the past. And then when a question from a customer comes in, they look into that data of the past and they suggest a new answer for that specific question. And the human customer service agent can see the suggested answer of the computer, they can play with it, they can use it, they can personalize it, and then send it to the customer. But because of this software, because of that automation, those customer service agents can be faster in their reply, and it can be done in a more personalized way. And it's totally invisible for the customer. This is where we're going to see a lot of change. We already see that right now, but that's where we're going to see a lot of change in the next couple of years. And then you have the more futuristic part, artificial intelligence in customer interactions and customer interfaces. There's already a lot happening. I mean, we have our voice assistants like Alexa and Siri and Google Assistant, but I'm still waiting there for the iPhone after the BlackBerry moment for voice assistants, if you know what I mean. I have the feeling that they work for like 90%, but imagine that they will work for like 100%. Imagine that you can outsource certain decisions completely to a machine like that. Then the way that we buy will change completely. Imagine that you say, hey, Alexa, I want to buy Colgate toothpaste. That's brilliant for Colgate, because then Alexa will give you Colgate toothpaste because that's what you asked for. But it becomes more interesting when you say, hey, Alexa, I want to buy batteries. How will that AI engine decide what kind of batteries that you will get? Will you get Amazon branded batteries? Which batteries will get through that filter? Probably because of their review data and their price quality perception in the market. And which brands will be stopped by the filter? So I think that AI will act as some sort of a product filter in our decision making. It's already happening in the field of communications. We all know that Facebook is an information filter. So if you look to the front end, AI, there will be some sort of a filter in our life. And a lot of people criticize that. A lot of people are like, yeah, but I want to have some more surprises in my life, and a filter will just narrow down my choices. And that's exactly right. So in my opinion, if you really want to be customer-centric with AI, you will also have to build in some level of serendipity, where there's still a surprise. If you know that your customer likes serendipity, you should build that into the algorithm to make people even more happy. And that's where the challenge will be. I think the behind the scenes aspects are pretty clear how that will work. The in front of the scenes, that's where we still have a lot of growth. But if we do that in a creative way, and in a way that we do more than just automation of certain processes, that's how we're gonna win the heart and the business of our customers, thanks to artificial intelligence. So I hope this video gave you some new insights. I hope you will like the video. I hope you will share the video. And of course, subscribe to the channel. And I hope to see you again in one of my next videos. Take care. How can we be more human in our customer relations? It's something that almost every organization wants to achieve. They don't want to be just functional, they want to have a more emotional relation, and they understand that humans can make a difference there. So I think there are three things that your humans can do. The first one is empathy. Maybe the most important human skill. Probably the only human skill that at the end of the day will not be done by a computer, because it's so complex, so difficult. We hardly understand it ourselves, how it works, but us humans, we can be empathic. And the better we understand the human behind the customer, the more value we can bring. So we need to bring empathy to the table. And if you can combine empathy with the right timing, then you make a unique moment for your customer. So empathy, number one. Number two, what we need to be more human is a positive intent. It is a misunderstanding in the market that every customer expects you to be perfect. Customers do not expect you to be perfect, especially if you're in a business with many, many interactions. People just know that things can go wrong. What they do expect is a positive intent. They want to feel that the human who they're talking with, who they're dealing with, shows the intention to help them. If you feel that that human is trying to block you, is trying to push you away, customers can become really nasty. But when they feel a positive intent and they feel that human is doing whatever that human can to help you out, you're going to score points no matter what happened before. Positive intent is number two. And number three is serendipity. I recently read a study from the Journal of Marketing that showed that if you can create serendipity in your customer relation, the happiness levels go up. Make sure that sometimes something unexpectedly happens. Some magic is added to the process. Today we live in a world, you have to just think about this, we live in a world with hardly any serendipity anymore. When you go to a concert, you check out the YouTube videos up front. When you go to a hotel, you've seen all pictures on booking.com. When you go to a restaurant, you already know the menu before you set even a foot in that restaurant. You know everything up front because of the internet. And because of that, no more serendipity. In other words, if something becomes scarce, it increases in value. So if your humans are being trained and are sensitive for the fact that your customers like a positive surprise, like a piece of magic that they didn't expect, if you train them, if you make them sensitive for that, you will increase your level of being human towards your customers. And they will be happier because of that. So 3 ways to make your customers or to make your employees more human towards your customers. Empathy, a positive intent, and making sure you add some serendipity. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like it if you did, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care. We've all seen the big digital jump forward of the past couple of years. And because of that, there's a lot of doubt about the role of physical locations in a customer experience strategy. And in this video, I want to talk about the kind of criteria you should take with you when you're trying to define how you can bring value to customers in an offline world. First part is, think about which digital aspects you can bring to the offline world. And I see 2 dimensions there that are really important. First of all, in the offline world, we want to have the level of convenience that we're used to in the digital world. So when people come to a store, we need to make sure that the checkout procedure and everything that is really not related to shopping becomes as efficient as possible, because that's what we're used to. And the second thing that we need to copy paste from the digital world is personalization. Online, we have a lot of personalized content. Can we figure out a way how to bring that in stores with content that is being personalized, with the way that they communicate with you that is being personalized? Those are two items from the digital world that you can bring to the physical world as well. But then the interesting part happens. Then it's about thinking what you can add that we don't have offline, that we don't have online. What can we add there? And there I'm looking for a couple of things. First of all, human kindness. Showing that you care about people, being nice to people, listening to what customers are saying and trying to help there. That's also the moment when you bring in your personal expertise. And the trick is, in my opinion, that you can act on the floor as some sort of a human filter. Online we have digital filters. A human filter can add empathy to the equation. Because digitally, when we have a filter, the only thing they do is they look to our behavior of the past. Right? They look at what we've done in the past couple of months and they assume that in the future we're going to do the same things. That's how the digital filter works. A human filter adds empathy to the equation. And because of that, we look at the real-time feelings of people and we try to understand how they feel at this exact moment and what they need at this exact moment. And when you understand that real-time emotion, your level of advice, your expertise, can be really tailored to how people feel at that moment. And that is something that a machine cannot do. And I think that's what we need to bring to the physical world. And when I'm to blame as well. I've heard so many people say that if you want to create something in the offline world, it's all about creating an experience. But I've been thinking about this. I mean, what does that mean, an experience? It's a very vague term. I think we need to combine the best of the online world and the offline world together. You bring in the convenience levels, you bring in personalization, but at the same time, you're a real-time empathic human filter. You bring in human kindness, and that is something that we cannot find online. And if you can combine both, I think you have a very strong proposition for your offline locations to win the heart of the business of your customers there. That's my opinion on this one. If you like it, if you share the opinion, let me know. Like the video. If you have other ideas, just let them know in the comments. Share the video, subscribe to the channel, and above all, I want to thank you for watching. Thanks for being here. Take care.